My wife, now ex-wife, and I were together for 8 years, married for 5 of those. We met at a friend's housewarming party, had the perfect meet cute that everyone gushed over, and seemed destined for that happily ever after everyone talks about. We didn't rush into marriage. We dated for 3 years, moved in together, got a dog, a golden retriever named Max, and eventually tied the knot in a small ceremony with just close friends and family. The first few years were great. We both had solid careers. I'm in software development, she's in marketing, and we bought a house in the suburbs. We traveled, hosted dinner parties, and generally lived what I thought was a happy life. Sure, we had our disagreements, but nothing that ever felt insurmountable. At least that's what I believed. About 2 years ago, things started to change. Sarah became distant. At first, I chalked it up to work stress. Her company was going through restructuring, and she was putting in long hours. But even when things stabilized at work, the distance remained. Date nights became less frequent, then non-existent. Conversations were reduced to logistics about household chores and schedules. Intimacy. That was a distant memory. I tried to talk to her about it multiple times. Is everything okay? Are you happy? Each time I was met with, I'm just tired, or everything's fine. I suggested couples therapy. She refused, saying we didn't need it, that this was just a phase. Then came the business trip to Chicago. Sarah was gone for a week, and when she returned, something felt different. She was even more withdrawn, checking her phone constantly, taking calls in another room. My gut was screaming that something was wrong, but I kept telling myself I was being paranoid. 3 months later, I got my answer. We were sitting at our kitchen table on a Sunday morning. I had made her favorite breakfast, banana pancakes with real maple syrup, hoping to reconnect. That's when she looked me straight in the eyes and said the words that still echo in my head. I feel nothing for you anymore. Just like that. No emotion, no tears, just a cold, clinical statement of fact, as if she were telling me we were out of milk. When I pressed her for an explanation, she said she had evolved as a person and we had grown apart. She talked about feeling stagnant and needing to find herself. It all sounded like lines from a self-help book she'd memorized. I asked if there was someone else. She denied it vehemently, almost too quickly. But I knew. Call it intuition or whatever, but I knew. 2 weeks after her bombshell declaration, I found the evidence. Sarah had left her laptop open when she went to shower. I'm not proud that I looked, but I needed to know the truth. There it was, months of messages between her and her new regional manager, David. The affair had started during that Chicago trip. Reading their exchanges was like getting punched in the gut repeatedly. She told him things she'd never told me, shared intimacies that were once ours alone, and worst of all, they'd both mockingly discussed our marriage and my obliviousness. I didn't confront her immediately. Instead, I contacted a lawyer the next day and quietly began preparing for what would come next. I moved half our savings to a separate account. Perfectly legal, my lawyer assured me, gathered important documents, and started looking for an apartment. 2 days later, I laid the evidence on the table when she came home from work. I want a divorce, I said calmly. I'd rehearsed those words all day, determined not to show how broken I felt inside. Her reaction was not what I expected. Not remorse, not apologetic tears, but anger, fury that I had invaded her privacy. She tried to flip the script, claiming I was the reason she'd strayed, that I had been emotionally unavailable, that I had driven her to find comfort elsewhere. According to her new narrative, I was controlling, unambitious, and holding her back. I listened to it all without interruption. When she finished, I simply said, I'll be moved out by the weekend. My lawyer will contact yours. Then I walked away while she was mid-sentence. That might have been the first time in our relationship that I had the last word. The divorce proceedings were surprisingly quick. We had a prenup, her idea, ironically, as she came from a wealthier family, no children, and I didn't contest anything beyond what was legally mine. I let her keep the house in exchange for my retirement accounts remaining untouched. Max came with me. She never really bonded with him anyway, and he was technically mine from before our marriage. Friends chose sides, as they often do. Most of our mutual friends initially rallied around Sarah, buying her story that I had somehow driven her to cheat. My family was steadfastly supportive, thank goodness. My brother let me crash at his place until I found my apartment, and my parents, despite their initial heartbreak over the end of my marriage, respected my decision not to try to work things out. The first 6 months were hell. I lost 20 pounds, couldn't sleep, and threw myself into work to avoid thinking. I paid for therapy, something I'd never considered before, and it was both the hardest and best thing I could have done. My therapist, Dr. Chun, didn't let me wallow or place all the blame on Sarah. She made me examine my role in our relationship breakdown, not to excuse the cheating, but to ensure I wouldn't repeat patterns in the future. Slowly, painfully, I began to rebuild. I reconnected with old friends, started hiking on weekends, something Sarah always complained about, and even took cooking classes. Max and I settled into our new routine in a dog-friendly apartment closer to downtown, near a great park where he could run. A year post-divorce, my life had completely transformed. I'd been promoted at work after leading a successful project, something I might not have had the time or energy for in my marriage. I'd made new friends through my hiking group and cooking class. I even started dating again, cautiously. Nothing serious, but enough to remind me that there were kind, honest women out there. The physical changes were noticeable too. After the initial weight loss, I started working out regularly. Not obsessively, but consistently enough that I was in the best shape of my life. I replaced my wardrobe, got a new haircut, and generally felt more confident than I had in years. Then came the day I ran into Sarah at a coffee shop. I almost didn't recognize her. She'd lost weight too, but not in a healthy way. She looked tired, her usually perfect hair pulled back haphazardly, designer clothes replaced by what looked like sweats barely passing as public attire. "John," she said, her voice catching. "You look amazing." "Thanks," I replied, genuinely unsure what else to say. She asked if we could talk. Against my better judgment, I agreed to sit with her for a few minutes. What followed was surreal. Sarah broke down, right there between the espresso machine and the pastry display. Apparently, her affair with David had imploded spectacularly 3 months after our divorce was finalized. He'd been cheating on his wife with Sarah, but had no intention of leaving his marriage. When his wife discovered the affair, he blamed it all on Sarah, claiming she had pursued him relentlessly. Both his wife and their social circle ostracized Sarah, and she was passed over for a promotion she'd been promised. "I made the biggest mistake of my life," she sobbed. "I threw away everything good for a fantasy." She'd been in therapy too, she told me, working through her narcissistic tendencies and fear of genuine intimacy. She wanted me to know how sorry she was, how much she regretted her actions, and, here was the kicker, whether I thought there was any chance we could try again. I felt no satisfaction from her tears, no vindication from her regret. Instead, I felt something unexpected: closure. Looking at her, I realized I no longer felt the searing pain of betrayal or the hollow ache of loss. "I forgive you," I told her honestly. "But there's no going back, Sarah. That chapter of our lives is closed." She nodded, wiping tears away. "I know. I just needed to say it. You deserved better than what I gave you." As I walked away, my phone buzzed. It was Elise, a landscape architect I'd been seeing for the past 2 months, confirming our plans for dinner. I smiled as I typed my reply. That night, as Max dozed at my feet and Elise and I shared a bottle of wine on my balcony, I reflected on the strange journey of the past 2 years. The woman who once declared she felt nothing for me was now drowning in regret, while I, the man who thought he'd never recover from her betrayal, was thriving. Sometimes the end of what we thought was everything becomes the beginning of something better. The divorce that felt like failure became my liberation. The betrayal that broke my heart cleared space for genuine connection. I'm not sharing this for revenge or to gloat over Sarah's misfortune. I'm sharing because somewhere out there, someone else is hearing those devastating words from a partner, feeling their world collapse, wondering if they'll ever be whole again. You will be, perhaps even more than before. Edit. Wow, this blew up overnight. Thanks for all the supportive comments. To answer some common questions. Yes, I did get full custody of Max, dog tax photo added. No, I haven't heard from Sarah since that coffee shop encounter 6 months ago. And yes, Elise knows the whole story. Honesty is our foundation.